Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today is Monday, so we will be doing a supernatural video today. Today is the Exorcism of Anneliese. I would like to give another shout out to Buzzfeed for having me, or not having me, but letting me do these videos. Let's go ahead, shall we?
Is demonic.
The Exorcism of Anneliese. I want to say Michael, but I bet it's not Michael.
Possession so chilling and controversial that it actually became the movie The Exorcism of Emily Rose.
Yeah.
What follows is the true story that inspired that, The Exorcism of Anneliese Michel.
Ooh. Michelle, see, I knew
it's one of the
I
few actual
wrong.
cases of demonic possession that went to court.
All right.
It's a
Wait. Did they like sue the demon?
Wait, so it actually went to court? I love that it went to court. Well, obviously not for them, but I love that. This is the, what do you say, this is the only one that went to court?
You'll find out.
Okay.
Born in 1952 in the small town of Klingenberg,
Germany again. It's always in Germany. Sorry, Germans. Sorry, Germany. But it seems like it's always in Germany, and this is 1952. Amityville Horror House. I know this house. I love horror movies, so this is great.
in Bavaria, Germany. Anneliese Michel was raised as a strict Catholic and was described as very bright and likable. In September 1968, when Anneliese was 16 years old, she experienced her first episode of
September of 1968. That's the month and year my dad was born. Oh no.
Losing consciousness. And later that night, she felt as if something was pressing down on her chest, pinning her to her bed. 11 months later, in August 1969, a similar event occurred, and her mother took Anneliese to their family doctor, Dr. Vogt, and a neurologist, Dr. Luthi, who examined her and even ran an EEG, a brain scan, but found nothing wrong. They hypothesized that it could possibly be a form of seizure. Over the next 3 years,
Fair points. Wait, doesn't an EEG now also test for seizures as well? So wouldn't they know? Well, maybe not. If it was the first form, or like a certain form, maybe not.
Anneliese would have 2 more similar episodes and was prescribed
Okay, at that point, they definitely should know something is wrong. Something's up here.
2 medications, an anticonvulsant medication and an anti-seizure medication called Dilantin. On both occasions, an EEG would come back normal, with some minor irregular patterns, but nothing that would definitively explain her symptoms.
What year was this?
This was in 1969.
Okay. I'm fine with that so far. That sounds real.
Yeah.
Okay.
Little spiders on me. Sorry if I blew it on you.
Well, you did.
It was in spring 1973 that things took a turn for the stranger. Anneliese began to hear knocking sounds in her bedroom, sounds her sisters would hear as well. But even more alarming, Anneliese also reported hearing a voice damning her to hell. Her mother was further rattled when she witnessed Anneliese furiously staring at a statue of the Virgin Mary with, quote, eyes turned black, jet black, and her hands seemed to turn into thick paws with claws.
So I know this series is called Supernatural Reactions, but this sounds like something that would be in the show Supernatural at this point. Granted, most of this did kind of happen in the show, but this is like next level.
What?
Also, I've seen like all the like movies, all the like horror movies, like Amityville Horror, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, all those movies. So a lot of them I already have a little bit of a background to, so.
Those are some chunky paws on her daughter.
Uh-oh. You know what? Let's move on. Let's not get caught up on the bare hands. I shouldn't have even said that part.
Yeah, we can't move past her having paws.
I knew you weren't going to like that. I'm just going to move past.
She had little kitty cat paws.
In September 1973, in a neurological visit with Dr. Luthi, Anneliese described horrific visions of demon faces that were tormenting her and stated that she felt the devil was inside her. She also reported smelling something that had the aroma of burnt feces, a stench that many are
Killer. No. I'm sure she ended up dying in the end, like the movies tell us, but... Sorry, I thought there was something behind me. Man, I tell you, sometimes doing these videos. Just wow. But yeah, I mean, whoa. I would not want this to happen to me at all.
around her would report smelling at later times.
Why do all these people know what burnt feces smells?
That is a fair point. Why?
Well, I
Why
can
do
imagine
they
it just
think
smells like
it?
feces
Like
with
shit on fire?
a little smokier. Fuck, is that a bee? See what you get? This is what you get. Yes,
I love
sick
the
of
nice booty shot that we.
Around this time,
Bugs aren't that scary, I promise, unless they're like actually scary. But bees aren't that scary, unless you're allergic to them.
Anneliese's mother described these strange occurrences to Dr. Luthi, who, according to Mrs. Michel, advised them to consult a Jesuit, a claim that Dr. Luthi would later deny.
Yeah, that's a
What?
bad doctor.
Yeah, I
Don't-
mean,
Yeah,
if
that
you
is
said
a
that,
bad
Don't go see it.
that's fucked up, right?
Yeah.
Whether or not that's true, the family definitely searched for a priest and eventually found a priest named Father Alt.
Is his wife's name Control and his daughter's name Shift and his son's name Delete?
In November 1973, Anneliese met with a Freudian psychiatrist who diagnosed her as a neurotic with possible epilepsy, and another neurologist found she had, quote, epileptic patterns, and took her off Dilantin and put her on Tegretol, a much stronger drug. In July 1975, Anneliese's extremely odd behavior worsened. She barely slept and prayed fervently all night. She ate spiders and flies, and even licked her own urine up from the floor.
This doesn't sound good. Like, obviously these doctors didn't know how else to diagnose this or how else to help this girl because... And it seems like even the priest didn't really know much either. So... At this point, I would just tell her, you know, we got two options. We could kill you or you can suffer.
Destroyed
See what
rosaries,
happens.
crucifixes, and holy pictures on the walls. Anneliese also exhibited strength that was, quote, close to superhuman,
Yeah,
throwing
no,
her
she's
sister,
possessed at this
quote,
point.
as if she were a rag doll, and incredibly was observed effortlessly squeezing an apple with one hand until, quote, fragments exploded throughout the room.
I bet I could squeeze an apple till it
I
exploded.
bet you $1 million you couldn't.
Yeah, no.
Here we go.
Oh,
I mean,
I love
this
this.
is Germany. This is before preservatives.
You hear that in the distance?
Yeah, but still, an apple still is hard.
It's the excuse train coming.
Yeah, I agree.
Wait for it. You're full of shit, Ryan. We're going.
But now you can't just see two hands.
Well, she definitely used two hands.
You said one hand.
But still,
now you
that's not
bruised
like
the
an
apple.
amazing metric.
A priest named Father Rodewick, a man considered an expert on exorcisms by his peers, reported that he was convinced that Anneliese
Wow. This has been going on for some time now, and you just now are convinced that she is possessed. Like, the eating bugs, the seeing weird things, even saying at one point that she feels like the devil is inside her. It took you this long to be convinced?
was possessed, and after deliberation with the bishop, an exorcism on Anneliese was formally approved.
Why wasn't it approved beforehand? Jesus. Look. I swear. Hello, bud. Hi, Prince. That's my dog. Jesus.
It was to be
Watch him
carried
do
out by a
something
priest
anymore.
named Father Renz. On September 24th, 1975, the first exorcism rite was performed.
3 days
Father
after my
Renz
dad's
allowed some of
birthday.
the exorcism sessions to be recorded, and 42 audio recordings of the exorcisms were made in total. I'm gonna play
How long was this exorcism?
some clips from those recordings, but fair warning, these recordings are perhaps the most disturbing pieces of audio I've ever heard.
Ich spreche dazu, dass ich in dem Wald rein bin. Ich trag dir die Rotznase noch so lang, bis es lebt wird. So blöde Leute.
You know, she's screaming.
Wow.
She's giving it 110%.
I mean,
Yeah, really.
do you think that sounds like it came out of a girl? Like,
Yes, it sounds like a girl doing a funny voice.
your unrelenting skepticism is exhausting. It drains me of all happiness and energy, and I hope you know that.
That's all. We're all here. I ran out of evil people to think of. The blonde man from Die Hard is also in here. Skeletor from Masters of the Universe. Heath Ledger's Joker. Not Jack Nicholson. He was too cartoonish.
You had your fun.
I've had my fun.
Okay.
Anneliese also named Fleischmann as one of her demons, and explained to us different signs of possession. All of these Anneliese had.
One would be an aversion to the sacred. So a person walks in this church and can't look at a crucifix, and you only see the whites of their eyes. Another would be knowledge of hidden things, where the demon will begin to tell you things about yourself that the person himself would have no way of knowing. Another would be possessing a kind of inordinate physical strength that they don't normally possess. Then the last sign is sort of epileptic-like seizures on a person's face and the movement of their arms and legs in a way where they lose complete control.
By May, Anneliese became even worse, banging her head against the wall and
Jesus.
biting herself and others, to the point where her family had to tie her up to prevent her from hurting herself. But most dangerously, Anneliese refused to eat. She described it as, quote, not being permitted to eat. Despite being quite frail, likely weighing under 80 pounds, she exhibited great strength when people tried to restrain her.
Yeah, I just feel
Wow.
bad for her at this point.
Yeah, I do
Yeah.
feel bad for
She's
her.
definitely tortured.
June, Anneliese's entire face was sunken. She also refused a doctor visit, even though she had a very high fever. On June 30th, Anneliese had another exorcism, only saying please, absolution. The next morning, her family went to her room and found her dead. Despite seeking medical attention early on, Anneliese refused to submit to medical attention in the end, as she and her family ultimately placed all faith of recovery into the exorcisms. Salvation at the age of 23 after 67 exorcisms. Weighing
I'm sorry, did you just say 67 exorcisms? Holy Jesus, literally. What? You know, I wonder how many exorcisms were, performed before this moment.
only 68
the
pounds at
67?
the time of her death.
Do you think that just made her, like, buy into it more? If people started exercising me on the reg,
Exercising you in the rig?
yeah, I might eventually be like, I guess I'm demons.
I would agree with that frame of mind, but Anneliese's belief that she was possessed predates
Yeah, all the
the exorcisms or the priests or any of that stuff. After her death, Anneliese's parents and the two priests were accused of negligent homicide, and the case went to trial in 1978. What follows are the two sides of that case. First, let's review the position of the defense. The defense presented eyewitness testimony and formally submitted the recordings as evidence of possession, an idea that the court never seemed to take seriously. From a non-religious standpoint, the
Dude.
defense argued Anneliese was permitted to deny medical treatment, as was her lawful right. For what it's worth,
Yeah, so this happened in the 60s and 70s. At this point in time, I believe the Miranda rights had already come into effect, as well as, oh wait, this is in Germany, never mind. But, normally, permitted to deny medical treatment. You can deny medical treatment, and if you die, that's on you, and that's pretty much what just happened.
medical treatment might have included tranquilizing her, force-feeding her, and
Exactly.
electroshock therapy. Quote, all presumably against her will,
Yep.
end quote. Family friend Thea Hine recalled in her testimony that in 1976, a few months before Anneliese's death, Anneliese reportedly, quote, begged on her knees for Hine to not suggest medical attention to anybody. Also worth noting is the fact that Father Alt actually looked for medical help towards the end. And on May 30th, his friend Dr. Richard Roth visited Anneliese out of what he claims was scientific curiosity and not as a physician.
he just was like, I'm
I see what he did there. Basically, because she was refusing treatment of any sort, technically she can't be treated on. But out of scientific curiosity, they can help. Because they're technically not doing medical treatment. Loopholes, man.
I'm not here as a doctor. I just want to see some of this crazy shit.
Yeah,
Who
exactly.
fucking says that?
I want to see this girl eat some spiders.
That's like something you say when you go to the zoo,
Yeah.
not when you go see someone that's tied up.
That is a bad man
Fair.
right there.
Okay.
In his visit, Dr. Roth claims Anneliese had no external injuries, although Father Renz noted she had several bruises, a swollen cheek, and black eyes. An interesting contradiction, to say the least.
Yeah, that's very much different. And this is on the same day. But based off how she died and everything, and that she died not that long after this, I would go with Father Ren's. I think that's how he said it. Father Ren's version. Just because if it was Dr. Richard Roth's version, I don't think she would have died that early on.
Dr. Roth also denied saying, quote, "There are no injections against the devil," end quote.
Oh, he definitely was bribed by someone. Probably the devil, but he was bribed.
Shady.
Shady as fuck.
Yeah.
Curiously,
very
in spite
shady.
of all the supposed epileptic attacks, an autopsy revealed Anneliese had a healthy brain with no damage that could have caused epileptic seizures. Quote, "Not even on a microscopic level."
Okay. If you're possessed, there's not gonna be any evidence even on a microscopic level. Like, I'm pretty sure most exorcisms or most people who have been possessed at any point in time, there was no actual evidence, scientific evidence of it. Because to them, to science, it just looked like a normal, healthy person. But the brain works in mysterious ways. And even, everyone's different. Everything is crazy and works differently than other people might think. You can't just say this person and this person with the same treatment works. So that means all general people it would work. That's not quite true.
End quote.
That's why we have
What say you
insane
to that?
asylums.
I mean, look, I'm not a, what's a brain scientist?
Neuroscientist?
There we go. Sorry, it's been a long
Oh.
day. I'm not a
Neurologist?
neurologist. I don't know what the.
It's funny that you said that because the neurologist said the exact same thing.
He said I'm not a neurologist.
Probably it sounds like it. You might as well.
Look, I don't fucking know.
I don't know. Go visit a Jesuit.
Yeah.
Jesus.
Just get your shit
Fucking-
stink out of my office.
And even more curious was
Fair.
the court's seeming non-consideration of facts, such as her pupils being unusually dilated and the absence of ulcers on her body, which are frequently found in victims of starvation.
Yeah.
Okay, all right.
Any quotes on that?
I mean,
This is great. The tables have turned, in my opinion.
Now, let's review the position of the prosecution. The prosecution argued that Anneliese had epilepsy and psychosis, and that the parents and
But
two
there was
priests
no
were
evidence.
liable for failing to act to save her life. The defense tore down
They
notions of
tried.
possession. They questioned the
That failing to act to save her life brought back the defense. She refused to take medical treatment. And at one point, I think she was the one that begged for no medical treatment as well. So there really isn't anything they can do. At that point, you do it, then they could be charged for going against her rights. So either way, at this point, if we're taking the prosecution side, at this point in time, the family is screwed. Because either way, they either get charged for, going against her will and waiving her rights, or they get charged for killing her.
the credibility of Father Alt with the conclusion from 2 experts that Father Alt exhibited signs of schizophrenia.
Whoa, whoa, whoa!
Yeah, that's weird.
How?
That's weird.
He wasn't the guy that was doing the exorcisms, but he was the guy that initially helped Anneliese in the beginning.
Yeah.
The prosecution also argued that the medications given successfully suppressed the epilepsy-like seizures, and argued that
I don't
suppression
think it
morphed
did.
into, quote, a delusional psychosis associated
No.
with epilepsy, end quote.
I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. I could be completely wrong. Feel free to put in the comments below if I am wrong and just let me know what I'm wrong about. Love taking facts and getting to know more. But I'm pretty sure that's not how that works. Suppression... I don't think the suppression would turn into psychosis. I also don't think it was suppressed.
They argued that Anneliese's psychosis was exacerbated by the exorcism, which only played into her fantasy. To piggyback on that, Anneliese often went through phases between exorcisms where she behaved normally.
Okay. I'm gonna bring up depression for a minute. A lot of people who are depressed, including myself, there's bits of times where we act normal. We act not depressed. So I would assume this would be about the same. And especially if she was possessed. Let's say, you know, whatever was in her left or decided to, you know, take a break. She's gonna act normally.
Even though she would behave as a possessed person during exorcisms, it's unclear if the epilepsy-like seizures were stopped by medication or if they actually stopped on their own. But Anneliese's psychotic
I don't think it
visions
was
predate
epilepsy.
the alleged medical suppression.
Weird.
Weird.
Sorry.
Basically, they're saying that the psychosis was brought on by the suppression of the drugs.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, which I don't think is true. I think the drugs just didn't do anything. That's about it. I just don't think the drugs really did anything. I don't think there was much they could do to help her, especially with how far along she was when they started all of this in the first place.
But this psychosis
happened
predates the drugs.
Yeah,
exactly.
exactly.
In the end, the court ruled in favor of the prosecution, sentencing the 4 defendants to 6 months in prison with suspension for 3 years and payment for all court costs.
Either way, they were gonna have to do time just because both sides weren't fully there. Both sides didn't have a lot of evidence, and it's hard to take something like this and send it to court, especially because there are a lot of people out there who would look at this and be like, this is horrible. This is not a real life thing. She's playing around or something like this. And the fact that she died in the end should tell people that stuff like this does happen, whether it's, you know, because of possession or not. It should at least tell you something's wrong, whether it was, you know, the person's fault or not. Because if, let's say she was faking all of this. If she was faking all of this, then that was her own doing. She ended up doing this herself, which I don't think a normal human would have been doing.
The court ruled that Anneliese was unable to make decisions for herself and should have been forced to submit to medical care.
So, from what I understand and from what I know, here in the US, I don't know how it is in Germany, but I know here in the US, by unable to make decisions for herself, she was awake. She was awake, she was responsive. Therefore, she was able to make decisions for herself. There was nothing that there was nothing there that could have shown that she couldn't make decisions. Just because she was responsive, she was alert, she knew what was going on, she knew everything around her. So she was able to make decisions for herself. Therefore, that whole medical care treatment just kind of goes out the window because she was able to make those decisions, and she did make them. Therefore, you can't do anything about it.
Professor Felicitas D. Goodman, an author of a book on the case, notes the theories that Anneliese was epileptic were presented as, quote, a statement of undisputable fact, not conjecture, as in fact they had been,
Exactly.
end quote.
How do you tell the difference between possession and mental health?
Sometimes both are going along side by side. You have to determine what is the root cause, the suffering of this individual. You start out with a discernment, and the discernment involves myself and a whole team of people. I have a medical doctor, a clinical psychologist, and a psychiatrist. In fact, a formal exorcism only happens as the last resort.
Given the evidence that we've seen and all the strange occurrences and the voices, I think there's sufficient evidence to not conclusively rule out that she was possessed beyond a reasonable doubt.
Sure.
So you acknowledge that.
I acknowledge there's a lot of factors in this case. I personally think there's something going on with mental health, and I also think that 67 exorcisms probably don't leave your mind in a good spot.
I could see both sides. I could see how it would be mental health. I could see how it would be possession. I lean towards possession. That being said, she should have gone to the hospital.
Yeah, get that girl to a hospital, please.
She's possessed or not, fucking force her to go to the hospital and let the doctors be like, holy shit, the shit's floating around.
PSA, if your kid's seeing the spiders.
Don't take him to an exorcist. Take him to an exorcist, but do it at the hospital.
No, don't take them. Take them straight to the hospital.
You can do both. That's what I'm saying. You can do both. You can have it happen at the hospital.
Okay, that's fine, yeah.
Regardless of the court ruling, many have debated what actually led to Anneliese's death. Was it a case of mental illness, possibly epilepsy? Or was this a legitimate case of demonic possession? Whatever the real reason may be, the case of Anneliese Michel is a tragedy and will always remain unsolved.
Okay. So this was a weird one. This one had a lot of extra detail in it. What I think happened was something, maybe she was possessed, but there was something off, and everything was handled extremely crazy and extremely weird, and probably shouldn't have been dealt with a lot differently than what it was or how it was dealt with. In the end, honestly, you could have a billion different theories, and all of them could be in some way true. As far as the psychological factor, as I was saying earlier, you know, mental health and possession, a lot of people sometimes, especially if you're extremely religious, you'll think mental health means they must be possessed or something. That's not always the case, and a lot of times it is mental health. I brought up schizophrenic earlier. You know, schizophrenic people, they do see things and believe things are real, and that can sometimes be treated as a possession even though they're not. And this girl went through 67 exorcisms. She could have been schizophrenic and then, you know, turned crazy and insane later, and then at that point it was too gone because she could have believed it, or she could have actually been possessed. Let me know in the comments below what you think. I will have my social media as well as Buzzfeed social media and stuff in the links below. Make sure to go to my website and suggest anything you want. You can also suggest them in the comments below. I will try my best to get to it. And as always, have a great and wonderful day. Bye!